week up, Dinya. Hello everyone and welcome to Lockdown. My name is Emma Allsopp and our discussion focus today is on whether there has been any positive aspects to the pandemic, or has these circumstances simply increased loneliness and isolation not only in young people but in elderly people also. Moreover, if we think back to about 18 months ago when climate change protests were on the rise, we think about today where there's far fewer planes in the sky and far fewer cars on the roads. One could ask, has this actually been beneficial to our environment and the world we live in? And here to discuss all of this today are wonderful guests, Tori from Down High Downpatrick, Karina from Spearn Integrated College Magherafelt, and Bróna from St Dominic's Belfast. Now, if I could direct this question at all three of you. Has the pandemic been this horrendous, ghastly experience, or has there been any positives that you've been able to take from it?
Yeah, I definitely think there has been quite a lot of positives, even the likes of being able to be more productive within do more hobbies, be on lots of calls, being with different groups that I've joined over the pandemic. As well as that, I feel like the world in general was really fast paced before coronavirus. Even like I was in school 5 days a week. I had my job where I was talking to people, 100 people at a time, 4 days a week as a tour guide. And then on top of that, lots and lots of hobbies. And I feel like a lot of people were like that around the world. It was all just so fast paced. And maybe it was time for everyone just to take a step back and work on themselves and look at what makes them happy with their friends and family.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There was obviously loads of positives that came from the pandemic and the lockdown, but I think we also have to take into account all of the negatives, like the whole fact of how lonely and depressing and how worsening everyone's mental state has been getting. Especially in elderly people and teenagers, from not being able to go out and see your friends and to socialize and just missing out on the experiences of life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Bróna and Karina. I think for a lot of people, lockdown has been a bit of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you get to spend a lot more time with family and maybe reconnect with family members you might have lost touch with. And on the other side, you have people who become lonely because they don't have the same social interactions as they normally would with friends in school or friends at clubs. But overall, for me, I think lockdown has been quite a positive experience. I've been able to spend a lot of time working for school, and I think it's really helped me in my studies. I think it's been quite a positive thing.
Yeah, and so you all mentioned, of course, we're spending the majority of our time at home now. So I guess what I would like you to tell our viewers is, how has it affected your family and maybe your family relationships, especially to maybe your grandparents who you perhaps don't see as often as you would have before the pandemic?
Well, I know from my grandparents, both my granny and granda work. My granda's off on furlough at the minute, but my granny works as a receptionist in a local doctor's surgery, so she's still been going to work every day. And I do know that between the months of March up until summertime, when we were able to see them again, they did feel very lonely. Every day was just the same as the next, and it felt quite repetitive for everyone. And also, I have two younger siblings and an older sibling, and especially my younger siblings, they actually enjoyed being at home. They found that quite positive. My brother has special needs, and home is definitely where he's happiest.
Yeah, so both of my grandparents would be, they would always be out and about. So I think specifically to them, this was quite hard on them. Mainly my granny, because my granda has the car and at least he could get around. He was even in like walking groups and everything, telling me he had his 10,000 steps before 2:00 before I'd even got up. So I do think it was really hard for them. For the likes of my two wee brothers, they both have disabilities, autism and ADHD. So within the classroom and stuff, they would have got extra help, classroom assistance. And especially with my mum and dad, they're both essential workers. I think it's been very hard for them to kind of cope during lockdown. But I think they're all coping as well as they can.
For me, my grandparents don't live in Northern Ireland, so I didn't get to spend as much time with them before the pandemic and to Skype or have phone calls with them. But I think that over the pandemic, I've had more free time to talk to them. So we've started talking more and just bonding more with my grandparents. And the same with my family, just spending more time at home. I've got to spend more time with my baby sister and my brother and my mum and all.
Okay, so Karina, you have mentioned that obviously there has been, and I'm sure everyone can agree, there has been, various negatives to the pandemic as well. Have there been any times where you've all felt quite lonely, or have you been able to sort of keep in touch with your friends and family?
I feel like for the most part, it's been quite lonely because you miss that face-to-face contact. But I feel like the whole aspect of social media and phone calls with your family and stuff, it still lets you keep in touch. So for the most part, it is quite lonely, but it's good that we have the social media and the technology so that we can still connect with the people we love.
I feel like I have struggled quite a lot, especially in the first lockdown. I think I'm just lucky that all my friends and family, they all do make effort to always call in, or even if it's like for my granny and granddad, to always bring them food and make sure everyone's talking to everyone and there's support systems in place.
Yeah, no, I think we're all really lucky in the sense that we live in the age of social media. So even though we're not seeing our friends and family to the extent that we would have pre-COVID, we're still being able to talk to them and, make time for them, which is obviously so important to keep those bonds together. So shifting the focus slightly, if we go on now to speak about the environment, Tori, do you feel that we have actually benefited from the pandemic and these lockdowns in the sense of our environment?
Yes, I definitely think so, because obviously people aren't travelling abroad as much, so there's less planes in the sky and people don't have to commute to work as often, so less cars on the road. And actually at the start of the lockdown, NASA actually reported a decrease about 20 to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. So there's definitely been a positive side to the environment through lockdown.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tori. I live right next to the international airport, so I'll hear all the planes going back and forth. So it's helped my sleep schedule quite a lot. I think as well that we all kind of made plans and the world just kind of smiled as if to say, it's not going to happen for us. Hold on. But I feel like it's been really, really good for the environment. Always on the news, you're hearing about like animals and just because we're all indoors.
Have you felt that you've learnt any lessons throughout this pandemic? Is there anything now that maybe that you would have taken for granted prior COVID that, you don't anymore, different little things?
I feel like before lockdown, I would have been a lot more materialistic. I feel like being indoors and not having to be out in society has really made me evaluate what actually means the most to me and what actually makes me happy, which is like, my friends and my family. And I feel like this time as well, and that time for evaluation is time throughout my life that like I'm never going to get again. And so I think it's actually been a really positive experience.
Yeah, I definitely think for the most part, lockdown has been quite a positive experience. It's allowed people to slow down and stop and think what's actually important to them.
And so if we take into account all the lessons that you actually have learned throughout COVID, do you think there's anything that you will take from this, that when all the lockdowns are over, you'll change how you live your life? Like any little things that you'll change or maybe perhaps not take for granted? Are there any different things that you can sort of think of?
Yeah, I think that some of the aspects of online learning, I think we could include technology a lot more when we're in school or just in learning in general, because we can take the positives from it. Obviously, we need to work out some of the problems with it as well, like the internet problem. But there's obviously some good aspects of it that we can keep once the pandemic is over.
Yeah, I would say that even just knowing what I want to do within the future, the time that I've had to kind of figure that out and kind of cut out the nonsense of just going straight for it. And for what's going to make me happy in the future, I think has been the best hindsight I could have had.
Yeah, I think going forward, there's definitely a lot of things that we should keep online. For example, within clubs and societies, a lot of them have AGMs, and I think that a really positive thing has been AGMs have been on Zoom. It might sound like quite a small thing, but it's actually it's quite handy to not have to drive somewhere just to sit and listen to something and then come home again. So that's one small thing that I think will be really useful to keep on after the pandemic. Like restrictions are lifted.
What I would like to ask the three of you, I'm aware that you're all in sort of different stages in school, but do you feel that COVID has changed your plans for the future? Do you feel that we'll have less opportunities as young people, or do you feel this is actually, you know what, it's made me so determined to just go for what I want to do? So how do you feel it's impacted all of you?
I definitely feel like for a lot of people, it'll definitely have made them figure out what they want to do and go straight forward. Even with the likes of me, I just realised that, plans can change so quickly and you may as well just do what makes you happy. Deciding to go to uni and then just travel has been just kind of what I've got my heart set on now.
I know for me, lockdown has more consolidated what I want to do. I always had an idea that I wanted to go to university to study medicine. And over lockdown, although I haven't been able to attend what I had planned, like medical work experiences in GP surgeries and stuff, I've been able to attend a lot of online lectures on medicine and getting into medicine. And I found that really, really helpful. And it's made me think, yeah, this is what I want to do. So the extra time has been really useful.
Yeah, for me, it's a bit of both. I realised that politics, I'm like very into it. I started watching the news a lot more often. I started listening to what's going on because it's been a lot more interesting. But I also realised that I don't want my whole life to be what it was meant to be, with not as many opportunities as a teenager. And I do want to end up traveling and just making the most out of life as I possibly can.
Yes, so the final thing I would like to ask you is, what is your secret to survival in lockdown? If we come to Karina first.
I would say that it has been difficult, but the thing that gets you through it will be your family and your friends, the communication. I think you need to surround yourself with people you love and people to support you through it.
Tori?
Yeah, I definitely agree there with Karina. I think that you need to really lean on your family, and also what's really helped me is trying new things. I've recently started to cook a lot more, and I found it's really fun, and to be honest, it kills time during the day because we've got a lot of time at the minute, and I've really thrown myself into my schoolwork during online learning, so I find that really has helped me through the lockdown.
And how about you, Bróna?
I would say with every action that's given out, we choose how we react to it. And so you could either just bury your head under the rug, or you could decide just to make whatever's given to you a positive experience. So with the likes of, I watch the news every night, even watching about how many people are getting COVID every day, you could easily just get swept up under that. But instead, a lot of people around the world are getting fit, learning new hobbies, becoming entrepreneurs. And I think that's something we should all aspire to do, something like that during lockdown, or even just to take the time to come back down to earth.
Yeah, so if I could just say a massive thank you to our wonderful guests, Tori, Karina and Bróna. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you all and hearing about your really real life experiences in lockdown. So Gur Mailgit, thank you everyone, and Lockdown was brought to you by Politics in Action.